You got the touch. You got the power. Yeah!
This is Three Brothers Movie Reviews, and we just got finished watching Bumblebee. Film is directed by Travis Knight, the director of Kubo and the Two Strings. Film stars Haley Steinfeld, and it takes place in the year 1987, and it is about a young girl named Charlie who, on her 18th birthday, goes to get a car, which turns out to be a yellow VW Bug. When she gets home, she discovers that the Bug is actually an alien robot. And the two of them have adventures with each other, and it's a bit of a coming-of-age story, and also a Transformers movie, while also being high-octane action movie. And it is the first Transformers movie which is taking place in the past, and it is also the first Transformers movie not directed by Michael Bay. So, overall question with this movie, how does it stack up in regards to the other Transformers movies? Where does this movie range for, like, Transformers movie quality?
Easily in the top two. Like, we were even discussing like what are our personal opinions of the Transformers movies that have been released now. You've seen them all.
Yes.
I've only seen 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I think my rating, I told you before I got in the theater, was 1, 4, 3, 2.
I think you're a little bit
And
easier on 4.
I
but...
may be easier on 4 just because it's like more fresh in my mind, but I think that this movie is easily either my favorite or my second favorite of the Transformers movies. I really appreciate the fact that the movie feels different than the other Transformers movies. Like, the biggest problem I've always had with the Transformers movies is
same plot.
Same plot.
Essentially
Every
the same
time.
plot. Just mix around some details, but ultimately you have some drama with the humans in the beginning, you have some military subplots in the second act.
Always a magic artifact.
And it leads into the third act where the world is ending. And
Exactly.
it gets boring after a while. It's tiring. This movie's different. It's like, it's very much in love with the 80s. It's got that style, kind of a bit of John Carpenter, a bit of Steven
Great
Spielberg.
soundtrack.
Very great soundtrack. Eclectic, too. Lots of different artists. It's
Yeah.
like, it isn't just the surface level artists. There are some of those in there, but yeah, the soundtrack is so cool. So, different story, very different story, smaller stakes, smaller scale. Yeah, this movie is different. That's absolutely the best part of it. So yeah, that's that. So positives first. We don't have too many negatives.
Nope.
It's hard to think of on that one. I remember thinking, I'm like, you know what? Usually Transformers movies, I was thinking this in my mind. Like, maybe the better way to criticize this movie is to say what's not in it. There are no overt sexualization of women. There are no marijuana brownies. There's no awkward or clunky dialogue.
The Central Crime Expedition receiving
There's no annoying side characters who are screaming and crying during the middle of action sequences.
There's nobody that seems to be there.
Like,
There's no human character that seems to be there only to provide comedy.
yes.
Like, it seems like everyone is there because they have a place in the story.
It's a very lean movie. Like, there's not a lot of moving parts like Bumblebee. It's stripped down and everything works the way that it should without any extra baggage. So, characters, like, Haley Steinfeld, really, really great character. She isn't annoying. She doesn't feel like a needy character. Like, that was something that I was noticing in the early stages of the film. I'm like, this is a character who has a story. You understand why she feels the way that she feels, and she's interesting. Yeah. Bumblebee is great as always. So, we hear him talking a little bit in the beginning half, which is pretty cool.
I think it was the same voice actor that did him in 3 as well, which is fun.
Yeah. And he does good visual storytelling after that. Like, he uses the radio. We pick up a little bit on some of the things we learned from the first film. There's just the slightest connections there. But Bumblebee is great. He's funny, and other supporting characters, I forget some of the names. What's the name of the friend?
She has a friend that she works at the carnival at who also comes across Bumblebee. I think his name is Mimo.
Yeah, that was his name.
He was a character that easily, I was anticipating him being irritating.
Yes.
And he wasn't. I liked that he felt like a person on his own, and the way he interacted with Haley Steinfeld's character with Bumblebee. It was funny.
Yeah.
He was funny, and he worked as a character on his own terms.
In a Michael Bay movie, he is the roommate that Sam has in Revenge of the Fallen. That character is like should be just tacked on and gets mixed into the story and usually is annoying, but he felt genuine in this movie. Like, we don't even learn all that much about him, but his presence is nice. It's nice just to be around him. He feels like a human being.
Yeah,
so,
and he's a friend that Haley Steinfeld's character needs. Like, Haley Steinfeld, probably the best relationship in the movie is her and Bumblebee, but kind of the way her character arc moves, very much in like a very John Hughes coming-of-age 80s movie, is there's a friend that comes in that you need. Like, I'll always love in like Pretty in Pink, Ducky. Ducky's the person that needs to
Everybody
be there
loves
for the
Ducky.
lead character, because like that's the person she can confide in, she can trust.
Yeah. So, structuring is nice.
Yeah. One thing that I told you right after the movie was over, and I think this is really important, is this is a movie that has low stakes that feel big and important.
Yes.
It's not a movie where by the third act there's a super weapon that's going to destroy the world. The stakes feel contained, but they do feel important.
Yes.
You do feel danger. You do feel the need for the good guys to win. But it doesn't feel like the stakes are blown out of proportion to the point where
they distract
from
what you're supposed to be caring
exactly.
about. Yeah. We were talking about Logan in comparison to Transformers Age of Extinction and how that movie almost could have been like that. The first 15 minutes like takes place mostly on this farm with like a beat up Optimus Prime. And it was similar in this movie. Like Bumblebee is kind of damaged early in the film. He's like hurt, and a lot of this movie just takes place in one location. Like there's nothing big. And I've wanted to talk about that like in a review format, that like I call that the theory of the exploding Earth. I'm like, if the world is said to explode inside of like a movie, the assumption is it's probably not going to. Like, when you go too big, you lose some of the stakes and value, and that's what happens in a lot of the Transformers movies. The world is going to end, and you just don't buy it. You don't feel that there are real stakes, and in this movie, it's not. They shrink it down, and they shrink it down appropriately. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, you were about to go into structure, and I think it's really a key factor here is this is a movie that time after time, it impressed me how restrained it was, how patient the movie was.
Yes.
Like early on in the movie, she comes across Bumblebee in his like VW bug form, and you expect like very quickly she's going to bring the car home and you're going to jump into the story, but the movie doesn't.
Yes.
The movie spends a lot of time with the character of Haley Steinfeld, with her family. You really get the sense of her world before the plot really jumps into gear.
Yeah, like they're patient. They take their time, and like there's a lot of material that isn't filler material, but it does help add to the characters. It isn't that the plot all runs just fast and that it's hard to like care about anybody. The movie makes sure that you care about the people. And then when the action hits, it feels more investing. So.
Exactly. Like most of this movie feels like a John Hughes coming-of-age movie that happens to have an alien robot in it.
It works, yeah. It's
I was never. But what's great about that is like generally the expectation is, oh, that sounds boring. It's not.
No, it doesn't feel conventional. It doesn't feel derivative. Yeah, there are references to E.T. There's stuff from Christine. There's a lot of stuff from John Hughes.
Yeah,
but all
Iron
of it is,
Giant.
All of it's seamless, though. It all fits together. It doesn't feel like it's copying anything, and it doesn't feel like it's playing its story like anything else. It feels like it's incorporating the best of all worlds into something pretty new.
Yeah.
So.
And before we even jump further, I just have to give a special shout out. John Cena was great in this movie.
Yes.
Like, as a character, he has a role that has been generally filled by good actors in other Transformers movies. He's a member of the military. He's hunting the Transformers. And generally, he would be a character that would be largely forgettable, but he's not. He has a reason for what he's doing. He has a purpose, and there's emotion behind his actions, and he's also very funny. Yes. Like, there were several moments in the movie where he brought me some of my favorite laugh out loud moments.
Yeah. There's not like cringy humor, which is just like, which is like embarrassing dialogue. The humor genuinely works. It works like 75% of the time, maybe, like really good. Like even more than that, I would say it's a majority. It is not just like the occasional laugh. It is most of the time you're laughing.
And very good timing.
Yes.
Like, the jokes are good, but the timing is even better.
Even better, yeah. John Cena, he was funny. He felt more like a character. He isn't just a military macho guy who has a lot of dialogue and scenes. And
We good?
So yeah, John Cena was great. He isn't just a characterless guy who's like macho and
Yeah.
you know wants to destroy the Transformers. Like you feel that he's a human. He's just kind of like a soldier. He's a really like passionate soldier, and yeah.
Yeah, this is a movie where characters are constantly learning and growing, which is a rarity in Transformers. Most characters start the movie in one place and end the movie in basically the same place. This is a movie where a number of characters that would generally remain stagnant in a less interesting movie, they change. They learn information, they internalize it, and they grow. And I mean, that's ultimately the story of Haley Steinfeld's character. She's going through a great change in her life. There's a couple of moments really early on in this movie that just spend time with her at her job, at home. And what's great is the movie's not telling you what's happening. You learn. You learn the importance of a car she's working on.
Yeah.
You learn about her family. You learn about all the things that really bring her grief and frustration. And you learn it without anyone telling you why. It's that why she feels that way. It just shows you.
There's no montage scene that just like skips ahead
That's
of all
a
the
great
important
point.
stuff. There's nothing that like shows you this is a day in her life, just breeze by the highlights. It shows you the entire story of her day. That's what the movie does. It gives you everything rather than just brief stuff so that we can get more explosions inside.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great job with
I like this
making
movie
sure.
a lot.
I was too. I was thinking in my mind. I was like, okay, and I'm like thinking back now, and I don't have that many problems. So
Yeah.
seriously, what like in regards to problems? Like,
I think you had a good one if you want to start.
okay, some of the characters feel in the realm of Michael Bay. Now, Michael Bay's characters a lot of times feel stereotyped. They feel like characters who are just there to sell a certain type and just be generic to lead to the action sequences. And in this movie, most of the characters are not, especially the military personnel. They feel campy, they're kind of funny and overt and over the top, but they work for that. Some of the characters who are in Charlie's life, the main character, like her family and some of the high school students that she hangs out with, they feel a little more like conventional Michael Bay characters, somewhat overt, over the top. Sometimes it feels more in the line with Michael Bay. Sometimes it feels kind of like, stuff that Stephen King made with high school bullies. One way or another, it works sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. Overall, the dialogue given to them is probably the least interesting and engaging of the film. But that's not, for me, like a detrimental flaw for the film. Usually something like that is overt and, like, destroys the good. In this movie, the good way outweighs the bad.
Yes.
So,
And even characters that can feel a bit derivative, the way they behave generally centers around how our character feels.
yes.
And so you can almost see it as it's extreme because that's how it feels to the character.
yeah.
Like I think that I might be making I'm not trying to make an excuse for it, but
Yeah,
I
like
think
that the film is doing this on purpose to
I
like
was-
show her perspective in life.
I was
Yeah.
never distracted by it.
Yes.
Because I felt that the movie was always emotionally making sense.
It
When the
was.
bullies are ganging up on her, it made sense for the scene.
It did.
If a family member character is acting a little too shui, it still made
There's a
sense
meaning.
emotionally.
There's a purpose.
Yes, it's not just here is
The drama scene.
here's the drama, here's the joke scene, here's this. Like, there was always a purpose behind the scene. Even if it didn't land perfectly, I still got the emotional impact that the scene was trying to give me.
Yeah.
I think that this is something that you and I talked about. I think that Travis Knight, who's the director, he's worked a lot with stop motion. And this is a movie that really is effective in its visual look and how it's put together. But one thing that maybe is a good thing to point out is that the way he shoots action, it tends to be singularly focused. You tend to be focusing on one character at a time, and generally you're not getting the sense of scale that you would with someone that maybe is a little more comfortable shooting action. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the action scenes are shot badly, but they're shot in a way that really reflects his background in very kinds of specific action.
With every shot mattering.
Exactly.
And, instead of this one with real camera work, maybe he doesn't have quite as much experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I noted that, and I talked to you for a long time about that, but yeah.
You brought up a really good example with Return to the Jedi.
Yes. Okay, there's a scene in Return of the Jedi. I will show you a clip. Right there, when Luke grabs the lightsaber, you don't see the entire blade when he turns it on for the first time. You just see him in a close-up. And then when he starts batting away the other guys that are on the sail barge, you just see him. You don't get the full scope of the lightsaber strikes. And that's in a lot of Return of the Jedi. There's a lot of close-up shots that aren't really too centralized that you can't see what's going on, but maybe you don't get the full scope of things. That action style reminded me of this movie. A little bit too close in, and maybe if they'd just taken the camera just a little bit further out, given more space in the frame, you would have gotten a little bit more focus in that. It's not a problem. It's just something that I noted, and I was like, you know what, that's very interesting, and just something that, like, I noticed a little bit more because I found the action just slightly difficult to follow, but not poorly constructed.
No, and I think on top of that, like, if we're going to just jump into the action scenes, they're extremely visceral, and when you have moments where a character is hit and a character is thrown, it feels like there's real physics behind it, and real impact. Like, one of the difficult things with a lot of the Transformers movies is it doesn't really feel like the characters can be hurt.
No,
like they're
so
not
many,
wounded.
So many scenes where like characters are like flying through the air, and the Transformers like grab them and spin across, and you never feel like anyone is being hurt, especially the humans and even the Transformers.
Yeah.
You feel like they can be killed, but you don't feel like they can be wounded.
Yeah.
In this movie, especially in the first act, lots of action sequences where, like, there are wounds from the Transformers, like they get damaged, and I'm like, this increases the action. It makes it feel more like you are watching beings fighting each other, like aliens who can be harmed.
And what's really interesting for me is generally when I've seen Transformers fight in other movies, it doesn't seem like they're really fighting with a specific purpose and really like fighting like if you have a big Transformer, they're not fighting the way a big person would fight. They all just seem to have the same way of fighting.
Like punching and
I love that in
attacking.
this movie, certain characters fight in ways that make sense by how they're designed and how they're function. Like Bee, he doesn't fight like Mike Tyson. He fights like Bruce Lee. He's small, he's lean, he's fast. So he can fight someone who's bigger than him, and he fights them in a way where he's avoiding them, he's using their momentum against them. And it's interesting to watch them fight because they're not just doing the same things. Each fighter, each robot is doing a very specific kind of fighting that suits them.
Yeah. The action is great. Like, the best of any of the Transformers.
Absolutely.
Maybe like the battle in Chicago and the battle at the end of the first Transformers movies, those are a little bit too overt. Decent action in them. This one, the action means something.
Yes, in
Every
terms
action
of
sequence means something.
impact, like in terms of the audience reacting in the scene, this movie hands down.
Yes.
Like plenty of moments where the audience was like, and engaged and reacting to a fight.
And crowd pleasing moments too. Like
Absolutely.
particularly the third act, no spoilers, but man, there was a scene that got some applause in our early screening, man. Everyone was like, yeah. So yeah,
Do you have any others negatives? I think those are the two we kind of talked about.
yeah, like second one isn't even a negative, so that's about all. Like, all right, so ratings, what would you give this out of 10?
It's pretty simple for me. This is an 8 out of 10 movie. I mean, with the exception of maybe some characters that maybe aren't as fleshed out as they could be, and just some limitations based on the director's experience. This is a phenomenal movie. It's really well constructed. It's really terrifically paced. I loved how patient this movie was. I loved how it doesn't seem like they start in the first act and they're so desperate to get to the third act so we can have an action scene. This is a movie that really is comfortable spending time with its characters, letting you sit in their world, letting you learn about them, and just letting you learn and grow with the characters. It's really surprising that this is a movie that I expected to be derivative at best and frustratingly similar to old Transformers movies at worst. But I love the fact that this gives me hope that we might get Transformers movies in the future that feel fresh, that feel meaningful, and feel more than the consistent script that just gets recycled every couple years.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too. So I do this a lot when I criticize movies. Is I tend to try to quantify them. I try to find certain things, and I was doing that in this movie. I was thinking I wasn't liking it as much as I could have. But the movie really grew on me, and I was like, you know what, this movie really is as good as I am thinking it is. And it's not perfect. This is still a genre B-grade movie. Like that,
Yeah.
that's all the Transformers movies, but this one is so effective at what it's trying to do. And I'm going to go the same. I'm going to go 8 out of 10. This shows what you can do when you give a director and a new screenwriter a Transformers movie. Like, this movie does not feel the same. And I think Transformers fans who love the Michael Bay movies will also enjoy this one. And hopefully that will lead to a new trend, because this film shows that Transformers movies have potential. They're not just all Michael Bay productions. You can make a great movie out of a Transformers movie. And hopefully this will encourage that in the future. So
Absolutely. I mean, if you get a chance, check this movie out. It's coming out in a few days. It's worth it. It's a good movie. It's not what you may expect it to be if you've seen the other Transformers movies.
Yeah.
But I say that in an encouraging way. It's something different while
chance.
sitting in the same world of the Transformers.
Absolutely. Yeah. Support it, please. Hopefully, if this movie makes bank, it will encourage change in Transformers. And I think that will be welcomed. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for watching. This is Three Brothers Movie Reviews, and please subscribe to the channel for more videos in the future.
See you guys.
You got the touch. You got the power.